On July 13, 2024, during the heated election campaign, Donald Trump held a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. At exactly 6:13 p.m., he turned his head to look at a chart displaying immigration statistics. That subtle tilt of his head saved his life. From a nearby barn rooftop, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks fired several shots that missed their target by mere inches. But what if Trump hadn't tilted his head at that precise moment? His Make America Great Again movement is a powerful political force that is loyal to Trump and Trump only. But would they rally behind someone new picking up Trump's torch, or will no such person be found, turning the movement into violent extremism, shaking the nation at its core? And with the election still looming, who would be the 47th president of these United States? I know this is an incredibly sensitive topic. Still, I encourage you to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. But please, let's stay civil. Donald Trump isn't just any president. He's arguably the most polarizing figure in American history. Opinions about him span from intense hatred to cult-like devotion. Now, of course, I have my own views on him, but I've done my very best to keep them out of today's scenario. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe and share the video. Now sit back and relax as we dive into the arguably closest what if in recent history. Right after Thomas Matthew Crooks fires his shots, Donald Trump drops to the ground. The Secret Service guards cover him in a hurry. Trump doesn't move. The agents quickly carry his body off stage into a secured vehicle and rush to the Butler Memorial Hospital. While the Secret Service is still on their way to the hospital, first reports and videos of the incident hit social media and go viral at lightning speed. Uploaded videos clearly show Trump being hit in the head. Television programs get interrupted by CNN and co. announcing that Trump has been shot and that his condition is unknown. He is not pronounced dead yet, but hope that he survived is low. Right after reaching the hospital at 6:25 p.m., the doctors present declared Trump to be dead. The Secret Service notifies the White House immediately, which begins preparing a statement. At 6:42 p.m., the White House officially announces the death of former President Donald Trump. Now that Trump's death is official, the gears of history begin to shift. Across the aisle, politicians quickly denounce the violent attack and call for unity, peace and the rule of law in America. Biden tries his best to calm the nation in a speech. He promises a swift investigation. While Democrats are happy with his speech, many others aren't convinced, and more importantly, Biden completely fails to calm the brewing MAGA storm. On July 14, the nation officially mourns. Massive rallies in commemoration of Trump are held. However, as the fear of violence grows, liberals and co. decide to stay home. On social media, some far left-leaning people already make videos and posts celebrating Thomas Matthew Crooks as a hero. While these are only few and far in between, it still adds oil to the fire. Many commemoration events slowly turn into anti-Biden protests with people chanting for his resignation. Conspiracy theories online are arguing wild at this point, analyzing every single detail about the assassination. One thing about it quickly stands out. As it happened in our timeline, the shooter was spotted several times before he started firing. While law enforcement was called and one police officer even climbed up the roof, they weren't able to stop him before he could carry out his attack. Also, people quickly pick up on how easily Thomas Matthew Crooks had access to such a good shooting spot that close to Trump. For many, the unfathomably poor work of the Secret Service acts as proof of conspiracy. MAGA enthusiasts and co. link Biden's poor performance in the debate with Trump's death. To them, it is clear that Biden had Trump assassinated since it looked like he can't beat him in the election. The protests only continue as nobody seems to be able to calm the crowd down. Luckily, some of the most radical members of the MAGA movement have been imprisoned during the 2021 Capitol insurrection. If the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys at this point would have been free, this scenario might have very well turned into a civil war. Still, even without the leading figures in these radical groups, the protests quickly become violent. The MAGA crowd targets media outlets and government institutions they associate with the deep state. I estimate that by July 15, these protests reach similar violence levels as the BLM protests in 2020. Swing states are hit the hardest, with Michigan, Arizona and Pennsylvania even being forced to use the National Guard to condemn the violence. However, since the MAGA crowd doesn't have a singular target a strong leader is pointing them towards, the damage they cause is not yet a threat to American democracy. Still, Joe Biden is in a very tough position. No matter what steps he takes, it seems like his popularity will only decrease. Since he still has to think about the upcoming election, he tries very hard to not make any potentially controversial steps. Speaking of the election, how is the Republican Party doing? For those thinking that J.D. Vance will be their automatic pick, I have to disappoint you. Trump picked J.D. Vance as his vice president on July 15, so 2 days after the rally in Butler. That means Vance has little credibility to pick up Trump's torch. The MAGA movement needs a strong leader to function fully. and at that point in history, nobody seemed to be able to match Trump in that. If they don't manage to find a new leader quickly, the whole movement might very well fall apart. However, it is likely that they will rally behind the new Republican candidate if he or she continues with a Trump-style rhetoric. The Republican National Convention is planned from July 15 until July 18, so they would have had 5 days at most to decide who their new candidate is. While moving the convention back in time seems like a logical move, it's not an easy task. Postponing the RNC would create huge logistical and legal issues in an already critical time. However, holding it that closely after such a tragic event is also awful. I think the Republicans would most likely push it back just a little, around 1 week. So let's say from the 22nd to the 25th of July. That way they can have time to mourn and also prepare properly. Before July 13, almost all Republican nomination candidates have dropped out, but most of them now rejoin the fight quickly. Since nobody is the clear and obvious successor of Trump, the Republican Party would have a very competitive convention to decide on Trump's heir. The most prominent figures are Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Vivek Ramaswamy. Oh wait, and there's one more. I'm very certain that Donald Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., would try to join in on the brawl in the Republican Party. He is already involved in the Trump Organization and political campaigns, and most importantly, he has a very credible claim to the MAGA movement, as he is the eldest son of its creator. Now these 4 potential candidates begin fighting very hard to get sponsors and rally the public behind their side. The world is watching with caution as the events in America are unfolding. Europe is worried deeply about the political instability their daddy is experiencing. Putin, on the other hand, is very happy. I'm certain that by this point Russia would try very hard to further sow division in America through covert channels. Especially through social media, they try to push the narrative that it was a conspiracy by Biden and the deep state. At this point now things become very difficult to predict. It all comes down to who the public and Republican sponsors trust most to lead the MAGA movement. And that entirely depends on how well Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy leverage this critical time to their advantage. I think everything I've mentioned so far is very realistic and I could just leave it here, having answered the question in the title. However, I want to delve deeper. With Trump gone, who would take his throne as the leader of the MAGA movement and the 47th President of the United States? While Trump's passing boosted his popularity greatly and gained him martyrdom, the Republican Party isn't so lucky. The fact that they postponed the RNC now bites them back. Instead of rallying behind a singular candidate, they started infighting. This is bad as some sponsors begin to pull out completely while the public views the party as weak and disorganized. Speaking of the candidates, I think we can safely cross Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy off, as they would either drop out again or not get enough votes to make a difference. Now the main battle is between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump Jr. Both have one significant advantage the other doesn't have, but to truly win and become a popular candidate, they kinda need both. Ron DeSantis is already deeply established as a Republican and has lots of sponsors behind him and the more established non-MAGA side. Also, he definitely appears better to swing voters than Trump Jr., who is publicly seen as nothing more than a weaker extension of Trump. He simply doesn't have the same charisma as his father, and while he has the same name, he is still not nearly as well known, with many people now only first hearing him speak. However, the die-hard MAGA crowd is strongly behind Trump Jr., since he's the only person they can somewhat cling onto. While Ron DeSantis and Trump Jr. continue their infighting, the violence across the US quiets down a bit. Or maybe a better phrase would be that it has reshifted. The crowds protesting are now far smaller. However, many still have an urge to fight. Many diehard Trump supporters turned conspiracy theorists have further radicalized themselves online and think that they need to fight Biden and the deep state with everything they got. Luckily, they're not well organized at all. Some of them do try to form militias, but if those attempts bear fruits, only time will tell. In the meanwhile, some members of radical online conspiracy groups carry out lone wolf attacks against whatever they perceive as the deep state. It's impossible to predict what those might have been exactly, but imagine something like a disillusioned MAGA supporter shooting up a CNN broadcasting station. Many online conspiracy groups that have sprung up since the assassination get labeled as terrorist organizations, and law enforcement takes them very seriously. The situation across the nation is incredibly tense, and the common consensus is a combination of fear and disillusionment with politics. Left and right-wing media are in a constant battle against each other, spinning the events in a way to make the other side look bad. CNN and co. harshly criticize the radical MAGA reactions, while Fox News cultivates conspiracies surrounding the assassination. I think by this point many people would start to get extremely sick of the levels of polarization. In our timeline, Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race on July 21st, 2024. I don't think that he would do this in this timeline. For one, much of the nation is distracted with the chaos on the Republican side, so discussions about his old age have left the center stage. One of the reasons he stepped down was to allow a stronger candidate to beat Trump, even if that ultimately failed. Now that need doesn't exist anymore, and neither Ron DeSantis nor Trump Jr. seem to be a worthy successor. Still, Biden is not popular at all, with his approval rating sitting at a miserable 34%. Some members of his inner circle still try to convince him to drop out. Without success though, and by the beginning of the Republican National Convention on July 22, Joe Biden is still in the race. As the convention progresses, it becomes clear that the race for the nomination is airtight. At a debate between the two candidates, Ron DeSantis urges unity within the party. He tries to take the path of peace and stability. In return, Donald Trump Jr. criticizes him harshly, claiming that he is using the chaos to make himself look good. Trump Jr. calls DeSantis a traitor and claims that he is no better than Mike Pence. DeSantis responds by criticizing Trump Jr.'s lack of experience and states that he is only where he is because of his father and that he achieved nothing in his life himself. The two continue by spouting insults at each other, making them both look bad in return. After some more debates, backroom deals and harsh insults, the convention comes to an end. Their vote is extremely close. By July 25 it is official and the Speaker of the RNC walks to the podium to announce. We are happy to announce that Ron DeSantis is the Republican candidate of 2024. Trump Jr. is furious, and instead of trying to make peace with DeSantis and join his side, he again publicly calls him a traitor. On Truth Social, he urges MAGA supporters to boycott DeSantis. By this point, many begin to fear that he will endorse further violence against the establishment. In the days after the convention, however, he doesn't do so. He further tries to rally the MAGA base behind him, seemingly not noticing that he already lost against DeSantis. Right now, it is definitely too late to run as an effective third-party candidate, but to many it seems like Trump Jr. plans to run for office again in the future. Now that the candidates of the 2024 election are clear, how will the country move forward? Trump Jr., who inherited the MAGA movement from his father, won't inherit the presidency as well, so who will soon sit in the throne destined for Trump? After the Republican National Convention, the nation has largely healed from the shock that was the assassination of Trump. MAGA, however, hasn't. They are firmly behind Trump Jr. and further radicalize themselves with conspiracies. Their boycott of Ron DeSantis results in him also being extremely unpopular. His approval rating sits at 31%, even lower than Joe Biden's 34%. Americans are completely disillusioned with both their presidential candidates. However, during all this chaos, there's another person, quietly navigating the storm, dodging the widespread political attacks against DeSantis and Biden. A person with high political aspirations, who unintentionally made the very clever move of staying under the radar until now. During our Times 2024 election campaign, there wasn't just a Democratic and Republican candidate. There also was a not too unpopular third-party candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Before Biden dropped out of the race, RFK Jr.'s polls actually didn't look too bad considering he was a third-party candidate. This was because Americans were not enthusiastic about a Biden-Trump rematch. Of course, RFK Jr. later dropped out to join Trump's side, but would he really have done so in this alternate timeline, where Americans are even more disillusioned with mainstream politics? I don't think so. Like it or not, but he played the election pretty smart in our timeline. I think he is skilled enough to successfully leverage the political crisis in this timeline's America. First of all, his numbers already improve simply by the fact that he is neither Joe Biden nor Ron DeSantis, two historically unpopular candidates. However, there's one big danger here. Ron DeSantis might be very unpopular right now, but that could change significantly until the election. He has until November to convince the MAGA crowd that he's on their side. Thus, RFK Jr. makes an extremely clever play here. After the Republican convention ended and Trump Jr. refused to endorse DeSantis, RFK Jr. makes a move. On July 27, he meets with Trump Jr. to make him an offer. He explains that America is shifting and that the two-party system is rotten to the core. He explains that the MAGA crowd needs a better candidate to put their money on than DeSantis. And if he employs a strategy of targeting the disillusioned American voters, they might very well win. RFK Jr. reaches his hand out to Trump Jr. and offers, "I want you to join my ticket as vice president." After some negotiations and strategizing, Trump Jr. agrees. I don't think I have to tell you why that is a great move for both of them. So on July 29, the two film a video together to announce their joint ticket. They harshly criticize both Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis, calling them both puppets of the media. In fact, one of their biggest talking points is the corruption of American media. In true Trump fashion, they call both liberal and conservative media fake news. They criticize CNN, Fox News and many more for lying to the public and being rotten to the core. Then they announced that they will not engage in any mainstream media events such as debates, but instead will be transparent to America and engage in podcasts. This message resonates well with disillusioned Americans, and they quickly get countless invitations from popular podcasters and streamers, including Joe Rogan and Adrian Ross. These podcasts get viewed tens of millions of times, surpassing the viewership numbers of both CNN and Fox News. However, their biggest advantage is that from the podcasts thousands of clips get made, which get shared to TikTok, Instagram and co. These clips gain hundreds of millions of views, depicting RFK Jr. in a positive light. He and Trump Jr., whose ticket is now nicknamed the Junior ticket, have employed such a strange campaigning strategy that Washington can't help itself but not take them seriously. Both Biden and DeSantis get told that they are no serious threat and that they should continue their campaigning against each other. However, as Trump has proven, American elections always reflect on the media landscape of their time. Whoever can better leverage the current state of the media has good chances of winning. Of course, some podcasts weren't the only reason why Trump won. He also had one particularly powerful supporter who shaped the social media landscape significantly in his favor: Elon Musk. If you take a look at how Musk is behaving now and has behaved during the 2024 campaign, I don't think it's too hard to believe that he would want to join on the Junior ticket. Only 2 days after the announcement of the ticket, he meets with RFK Jr. and Trump Jr. in privacy. He discusses with them how he can use his platform X to sway the chances in their favor. In return, he wants them to establish a so-called Department of Government Efficiency once RFK Jr. is in office. Of course, the two candidates agree, and together the trio begins planning their moves. During August of 2024, RFK Jr. is gaining fast in the polls. By the end of August, he straight up surges ahead of both DeSantis and Joe Biden. This is when Washington and the established media realize that they need to take him as a serious threat. Both Biden and DeSantis criticize him for not giving TV interviews and harshly urge him to join a debate. That strategy works, and by September, RFK Jr. is stagnating in the polls. Still, the election seems to be a tight three-way race. In order to make up for the weakening numbers and to prove that he is indeed a serious candidate, RFK Jr. agrees to debate with Biden and DeSantis in the beginning of October. The debate is held on ABC with similar rules as the Trump-Harris debate in our timeline. RFK Jr. has a very big advantage over the other two candidates. He's not part of any of the two established parties. That means that he can use every chance he gets during the debate to blame both Democrats and Republicans for ongoing issues in America. Biden also tries to criticize him harshly, mainly for his involvement with the MAGA movement and his lack of trust in science. DeSantis' criticism against him works a little bit better, but still, the fact that the criticism is based on RFK Jr.'s personality and not political mistakes makes them very ineffective. RFK Jr. is the clear winner of the debate, and the few MAGA members who have defected to DeSantis now move back to his camp. Besides MAGA, RFK Jr.'s biggest voter base is actually the youth. Young Americans grew up in a world of divided politics, and now there's a person speaking out against exactly that division on platforms they are familiar with. While most of the left still aligns with Biden, their enthusiasm is extremely low, which is only helped by the fact that his debate performance was not strong at all. DeSantis, meanwhile, only has traditional conservatives on his side who haven't defected to the Trump base yet. Within days after the debate, RFK Jr.'s approval rating surges to 33%, and he's now the clear favorite. Seeing the results of the debate, both Republicans and Democrats are in a state of panic. Neither Biden nor DeSantis agrees to another debate. They now see RFK Jr. as their biggest enemy right now, so they throw everything they got against him. Especially Biden's team tries very hard to make viral social media campaigns to discredit RFK Jr. However, those are perceived as unauthentic and further disillusion young voters from voting for Biden. For once now, Fox News and CNN can agree on something. They absolutely despise RFK Jr. Their messages are now looking eerily similar, with both criticizing him harshly, mainly for his lack of political experience. To further boost his chances, RFK Jr. takes a firm, anti-war stance. He criticizes the Biden administration for their aid to Ukraine and failure to stop the war in Gaza. Similarly to Trump, he claims that he could quickly bring both conflicts to a halt once in office. However, unlike Trump, he can't claim that there were no new wars during his presidency, since of course he was never president. So this anti-war message falls kinda short, with most people simply not believing him. By the end of October, all three candidates still have negative approval ratings. DeSantis sits at 31%, Biden at 34%, and RFK Jr. at 44%. The race itself is predicted to be much tighter. It all depends on if RFK Jr. can take away some crucial Democratic and Republican states, like Texas or Washington, two states that used to be firmly on one side and have now turned into battleground states. As election night approaches, Americans carefully watch as the first states begin to be counted, and the night already begins with a big shock. The first state counted is Indiana, and it goes to RFK Jr. Americans can't believe their eyes. And this mayhem only continues. The next state counted is Vermont, which also goes to RFK Jr. Both CNN and Fox News are visibly shocked by now. As they continue to announce the states, their shock becomes more difficult to hide. They announce Kentucky, DeSantis, West Virginia, RFK, Mississippi, DeSantis, Maryland, Biden, South Carolina, RFK. Both announcers tell their audience that RFK Jr. has a realistic path of winning the election. However, it all depends on one crucial swing state now: Texas. If RFK Jr. actually manages to win the state, his path to victory would be clear. And so, after a few more states get announced, the reporters get the news that Texas has been called. The world is glued to their screens as it is announced. Texas goes to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. now has a massive lead. Both Republicans and Democrats are now truly disheartened. Especially Republicans can't believe what just happened. As the night continues, it becomes clear that RFK Jr. is the only candidate who could even reach 270 electoral votes. And as many have feared, and few have predicted, he actually does so, thanks to Washington, the last crucial swing state, being counted, putting him at 275 electoral votes. History just changed forever. The two-party system, a system that seemed to be so deeply embedded in America that it would only die when the nation itself dies, has been defeated. For many, that is the true victory. RFK Jr., with the help of MAGA and Elon Musk, has proven that a true outsider can win against Democrats and Republicans if he is at the right place in the right time. Many, especially on the left, are not very enthusiastic about RFK Jr. As his inauguration is drawing closer, many liberals begin to fear that he will actively try to dismantle American democracy, and just like Trump, he gets compared to a certain Austrian painter. However, unlike in our timeline, the left also experiences a surge of hope for the future. RFK Jr. has just opened the door for America to become a multi-party democracy, a thing that many Americans wish for, and I, a European, think would really do some good to the country. My channel is focused on alternate history, and this scenario would now turn into more of a alternate future prediction, which I have almost no experience with. I would love to make some future predictions about our timeline though, something like China invading Taiwan or Elon Musk becoming president in the near future. If you'd like to see that, please let me know in the comments. To summarize the scenario, I think that if Trump didn't tilt his head at 6:13 p.m. on July 13, 2024, unlike the meme suggested, no civil war would have broken out. MAGA, without a strong leader, simply is too disorganized, and with no very credible evidence, the military would never turn on Joe Biden. However, Trump's passing would definitely further disillusion Americans from the establishment, and if Republicans indeed infight, which I think is very likely, many would also turn away from them. I think this disillusionment with politics would manifest with a third-party candidate gaining significant traction, and RFK Jr. was just in the perfect spot to leverage that. If he makes the right partnerships, such as Trump Jr. and Elon Musk, I think he has a very realistic chance of becoming president. That's of course very speculative, but still I strongly believe that everything I said is very plausible. I hope you enjoyed this scenario. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing to help my channel. If you're hungry for more modern alternate history, you can check out these other videos. The one on the right is about the Wagner rebellion succeeding and the geopolitical fallout that would create. The one on the left is about Trump going to war with Iran after the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.